This has been one of my favourite dishes since I've been in Bali. It's pretty simple stuff because basically all it is a nice fresh whole fish, and you make a paste with shallots and chilli, of course, some galangal, which is a relation of ginger, and some lime juice and maybe a little bit of oil. I've really enjoyed it. It's been absolutely delicious. Lovely flavours, but the thing about it is you put the paste on the top, so the fish itself is a contrast. So you get the mellow, sort of tender, juicy fish, and then on the outside you get this real sort of oomphy bit of paste. A bit like blackened fish in you know, the Creole Cajun dish. Sort of like that, very hearty outside. What I've got here is what they actually call a snapper here, which is certainly nothing like our snappers, so I'm not quite sure about this. But they tell me it's a snapper, so I will say it's a snapper. And I'm just going to cut some slices in it, and then we're just going to rub some salt and lime juice into that. And then you just put that aside while you are doing the rest. So just some ordinary table salt and just rub that in quite well. Make sure you get it into the slashes too. That's actually rather than cut, I think you normally call those slashes. So you slash your fish. I think that's what it is anyway. So just rub it in. We'll also add a little bit of fresh lime juice and do the same thing there too. And then what we do is just put that to the side while we make this paste. Now, what I've got here is I've got 2 or 3 small chilies. I've also got 3 of these shallots, just like that. And I've got a piece of galangal, which I'm just going to grate over the top of that. Grating it is by far the best way to deal with it. And I want quite a bit there, because as I said, this paste should have lots of flavour. And what we will then do is just chop this all together. Now, you could put this in a small food processor if you wanted to, along with the lime juice and oil, or you could put it in a mortar and pestle if you wanted to. But I think this is just as easy, but it's up to you. But we are making a paste, we're not making a puree, and that's the advantage of chopping it rather than putting it through a food processor, because in a food processor you do tend to end up with a liquid because it whizzes it up. Alright, now let's just put that in a bowl. Throw in the lime juice. There's about the juice of a couple of good limes there. And also a couple of tablespoons of vegetable oil. And we'll just... I've got a whisk here. No, I haven't. I thought I had a whisk. We'll just mix it up. Just like that. Alright, we've just mixed that up well. Now we just grab a decent piece of foil. Actually, I must tell you, when I was in India last time, I always have the shiny piece out. And when I was in India last time, the chef in one of the hotels gave me a fish in a similar circumstance to use, and I said, what variety is it? And he said, it's a slapper. And he was telling me what he thought was, you know, our English snapper. I didn't have the heart to tell him that the word was snapper, not slapper. But it didn't look anything like our snapper either, so it's a bit like this. So what we now do, you notice that I oiled it very slightly on the bottom. You could use the marinade or the paste for that if you wanted to. But just a decent amount of this. And before you say to me, Hewitson, you've gone mad on the chilli and garlic, here in Bali, I finally found some people who are as keen on chilli and garlic as I am. The only problem I'm going to have a word to them is they don't eat coriander or parsley, or very rarely. So we're going to have to do something about that, aren't we? So they like chilli and garlic even more than I do, because most of their recipes sort of tend to start with 10 chilies and 10 cloves of garlic. This is for 2 people. I'm exaggerating a little, but they do start with a lot of chilli and garlic. Now, back to what I'm doing. What we now do is I'm just putting this on one of these ridged grills on the flat side of it. But that will take, to me, about 15 minutes. Turn it over once if you like, and the whole idea is just steaming it all in. But just keep a little bit of an eye, and you may find you have to turn it down because you don't want it to burn on the bottom. All right, let's have a look at this. because it certainly smells good and looks good. Now comes the hard part. Ooh. Don't know whether I should be grabbing that tail because it's coming off. The other thing, may I say, what you really need is a bigger plate, isn't it? Then all these juices over the top. Look at those. And just get rid of that bit because that's a little bit where it caught. Just clean up the plate. Now that, my friends, is a good dish. You can see why it's one of my very favourites in Bali, because it's got lots of wonderful flavour, served with some steamed rice, some simple green veggies. Doesn't come much better than this.